Welcome back, venturers. It's time for another discussion about VNs. I am Emar, and together with Tauros, we plan to go shopping today. But where to? Where would one go to shop for VNs? To find the answer to this question, we once again ask our fellow VN fan, Ange. Welcome back to the podcast. Now guide us of where to shop.
Hey, it's good to be back once again on VNture. I've bought visual novels from my fair share of almost every visual novel store out there. So I definitely have my thoughts and opinions about this topic, that's to say the least.
Over on your YouTube channel, you even had a video several months ago reacting to August Hale's description about various visual novel storefronts. And his was maybe a little negative on Steam in particular, and so you really wanted to showcase all the ways Steam was good. And for anyone who's not familiar with multiple storefronts or the video you did, do you have like a quick summary of the positives you were talking about with visual novels on Steam?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like you said, just for reference, my video was basically to talk about the positives of Steam. Yeah, since August was admittedly negative on Steam, and he did bring up some fair points, but the positives that I kind of brought up were kind of boiled down to, I mean, it's obviously the platform people trust the most. It's like the one that people use by far, according to polls. It has like a lot of cool little features, like being able to gift things to people. It's the only one of the few stores that actually have PayPal. I mean, there's things like public reviews that like people can easily reference, and a lot of other little things like achievements, uses of being able to do it on the Steam Deck with less tinkering. Like I could go on, but those are like the main points I can remember from that video.
Yes, I mean, I do have to agree. You know, the first and foremost point is that Steam is the most popular for acquiring digital games and products. And if that includes visual novels, then any, publisher, developer, whoever would want to put their VN onto Steam because that gets so many eyes. And all of the people who will check out your game is a potential customer, and that's an additional person who may decide to take a chance and just buy your game, buy your visual novel. And that leads to a whole lot of fame and money involved, which, hey, that's what everyone needs to stay in business. And so just purely off its popularity, Steam makes a strong case for it being the premier place to acquire visual novels.
Yeah,
I got to say, because I want to address one point that Ange made in his video. Right, this is the best platform for supporting VNs. You made that claim. And that made me think, if so, how is that a point for a client? Because in my opinion, it's a best platform for supporting VNs from this viewpoint of a developer who gets there, not necessarily from the end user and client. That this meaning client, the one who purchases, not the client as in the application.
Yeah, that is definitely an argument I've heard before. That I can't remember which visual novel developers said that specifically. Yeah, but apparently, since Steam takes like somewhere in the range of 30% of the whole purchases or something decently higher than if by supporting the visual novel on these non-DRM stores like Manga Gamer, Jazz, Dempasoft, Cogger Games, whatever, then you're technically giving like a higher percent of the sales to the publisher, which in turn gets, depending, I don't know what their contract's like, given to the original developer, which in that regard, I do agree, supporting the official store would be better but I guess the main counter argument I give is if people actually use the stores. That sounds kind of harsh, but like kind of what Tauros and I were kind of talking about earlier is Steam, like no matter what kind of argument, like whatever cool feature Just adds, even if they add PayPal, even if Manga Gamer changes their UI, ultimately Steam is just the one people just trust the most if they actually want to pay for visual novels, just because it's the one that just the people know and what they're familiar with. And these sites people might not know, or unfortunately, frankly, might not care that they support the developers, because unfortunately, as much as it'd be great to give more to the developers, you kind of have to get customers to even buy the visual novels to begin with, like whether it's the fact that visual novels can be purchased, because a lot of people still pirate, unfortunately. But just finding where to buy them is just easiest on Steam, and unless you're like in the visual novel community proper, you might not know that these other stores are actually better for supporting the developers so they can make more and maybe have them trust the Western market more and all that stuff.
Yes.
Because I wanted to go ahead and address all those points, especially the one that you elaborated on. If the case is made to maximize supporting the developers, I don't think Steam wins that, right? Which is fair enough with the percentage cut, right? Another point you did, trust for the person who wants to buy VNs is higher in Steam. But I think a lot of heavy lifting there is you have to be already a person who buys games on Steam to build trust with it. So it's easier from you to branch off from buying games on Steam into buying visual novels on Steam. Yeah, but I have friends who don't play games but play visual novels. To them, Steam is a pain in the... It's a pain, let's call it like that. So that doesn't really translate if you don't have a prior relation with Steam, right?
I mean,
so
sure.
The trust only goes so insofar as did you use that kind of storefront before? And it is more or less a grocery store kind of analogy, in which you in a given grocery store you always go shop. They opened a new section. It just so happens to sell VNs, and you already trust that store, so you may as well buy VNs there.
Yeah, but I think you mentioning your friends who play VNs but they don't interact with Steam at all, that has got to be a tiny sliver of the population at large. I mean, I would be very shocked to hear that someone doesn't have a Steam account and they just never got their start with Steam, considering how big it's been for, the past 20 years or so? They're at the point where they're practically synonymous with the whole idea of a digital storefront. Just like in the same way you have the Apple App Store for trying to get apps onto your mobile devices. It's like that is literally the go-to place for everyone who wants to get these kinds of digital downloads.
Fair enough, but then again, we had that person on our podcast because to this day, Pablo C just hates Steam to the level of he only created Steam account to do the official translation, the fan translation with at the behest of developer for the Wailing Guignol title. That's the only thing he made a Steam account for.
He is also a very unique individual. I love Pablo.
Sure,
he's a cool guy and all. It's he's not representative of the typical video game player.
Oh, definitely no. I think there is a lot of commonality for people who tend to like VNs to either stem from the group that likes anime or like games, of which there's a huge majority that already has Steam for other purposes. But even so, I'm using Steam for games, and my approach to buying VNs is Steam is my last pick. If I can avoid it, I don't buy it on Steam. Maybe last is too harsh, maybe second or third, but it's not my first choice.
I can definitely empathize, because I mean, I was one of those. I think a long time ago, I used to be one of those, like, why would I don't get this hype for Steam? Like, this is like long before I made that video, and I can definitely understand why people would dislike Steam. Because I mean, it definitely, even though it's very convenient, it does have its flaws. Like, for example, if you care about DRM, like, just by default, you have to play things on a client, right? And then you have to, and then for visual novels specifically, there's that annoying thing you have to do is to find the 18 plus patch, because Steam are very have become weirdly authoritarian with policing. Like, okay, did someone post an 18 plus patch on our community forums? All right, well that person's banned and he can't buy anything anymore, or he can't use the community features anymore because he dared reference of 18 plus patch just existing somewhere. I think that's really stupid, and I could definitely see why people would hate Steam, because they're very restrictive and like the weirdest, and some may argue incredibly inconsistent ways. And I can definitely understand why if you, and like going back to what MR said, like a lot of people who use Steam is because they're already gamers and it's already convenient. And I think that is part of what the publishers who have to rely on Steam kind of have to do. They have to be like, okay, how do we make it so this visual novel that's brand new, it maybe can appear on someone's homepage algorithm, and they always have to like race to get like it's like 10 or at least 10 or so reviews on the first week or so, just so it can reach people and all that stuff. You have to like Steam, in addition to like all the restrictions you have, you also have to like get trust with Valve itself. Like if your games don't sell on Steam, they're like, wait, why should we approve this visual novel if you're not even going to get people to review a game that they have that's like 30 hours long? Like, it's just kind of unfortunate for the publishers who have to kind of do all that stuff.
Yes, as
I
far
want to
as
start dissecting, because you made a lot of points, Ange, so I want to go one by one. So you started with the 18 plus patches, right? To restore content, because it's a symptom of what Steam, how can I say, pressure the developers to do. They need to acquiesce to demands of Steam, prepare the appropriate Steam versions, and then those developers release restoration patches, okay? And as a proxy, as a result of all of that, we end up having either butchered, like in case of Nukitashi, I think you can attest to that. It was like half an hour of content only left in the game, completely butchered in order to meet the criteria for Steam. There are other examples in recent months. I've read Gears of Dragoon. Gears of Dragoon All Ages version is on Steam in such a state that is unbeatable, meaning there was a choice during the cut content that never got moved outside, so you can never reach the ending because you can never reach that choice and pick either option.
So you're locked into a bad ending?
Yeah. No, you're locked out of progressing.
Oh, yeah, even worse. Oof.
There's no bad ending to be reached. Even worse, you're in limbo ending. So, So that's a very bad symptom. Now, I want to go back also to what you said about community features, because I think this is a big point for Steam. Either it's promotion of new releases appearing on the store page, on the front page, because by proxy, if you are already using Steam for other titles, you are more likely to see a new release for a niche sub-hobby you have of visual novels. So that's actually a very good feature. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Another one would be the review section. Holy hell. The fact that Steam promotes very analytical and meaningful reviews over one-liners and memes, in addition to its popularity with reviews, is an amazing combination. So it's a very good point for Steam.
Steam will even
contrast with
Steam
non-existent.
Will even show if there's been like a ton of reviews skewing one way or the other in a short-term period to like suggest if there was review bombing, and they'll highlight it and offer to take it out too.
Exactly. And you as a user also, if you delve deep into options, can opt in and opt out of the curation for a given period of time. So that will it be reflected or not on your graph of reviews, because they have some auto filtering you can disable or enable for that review bombing situations. So I feel like from those standpoints, Steam is really good, even for VNs. But I still believe that ultimately the way it handles VNs on average, especially the unclear guidelines, in which you even made a point, Ange, some of the games that are all ages, Kira being one of them, just aren't here. Nope. Why? We never knew. We never will know.
Yeah, it's funny you've brought that up because I think Manga Gamer, like at least some of the staff I've seen before, made tweets about their frustrations because, at least from what I've understood, for example, the Kira Kira All Ages version. So I think, outside of recent before like the 2020s, I think the idea is publishers have to make 2 builds, and their ideal is their all ages build can still tell the whole story, but just not have the H scenes, right? But as we said earlier, these days you kind of have to cheat, I guess you could say, and make like 15 to 1 hour builds where in addition, you just cut out like everything besides the common route, or you could say cut out everything besides like parts of the common route. And with Kira Kira, I mean, it's possible that Manga Gamer attempted to put it on Steam before, but it just didn't work. And I heard like they did a similar thing with their version of Kara no Shoujo, the second episode, because the original was able to get on, but not the second one. But we'll never know why. But we can only guess that it's because of quote unquote underage looking heroines ? But we won't know. And that is a very unfortunate frustration with Steam, and once again another reason why I can understand why people do not like them.
I mean, I really like the fact that you brought Manga Gamer, especially since they had a success story with Steam. Probably the most talked about was the Evenicle, that not only got accepted by Steam, but also in its full 18 plus glory, which is craziest how they managed to do that. Since then, times have changed. Steam tightened their guidelines and or lack thereof, and they couldn't replicate the level of success Evenicle had on Steam.
Steam has so much going for it. I mean, even with all the things you mentioned, they have more. They've got regional pricing, they have achievements, they have, like you said, the public reviews, they have cloud saves too, between different devices as well. And as a storefront, Steam is just miles ahead of everyone else trying to compete in terms of visual novels, and even storefronts competing in terms of video games too. Steam has all those decades of, I guess, features behind it. But easily, the worst part about visual novels on Steam is the censorship and how authoritarian Steam is and how they can just revoke it anytime even. Like, there's been times that visual novels are trying to change their names to be allowed between Liminal and Criminal Border, or Henpri. And you've also mentioned there's ones that have just cut their content entirely, like Wonderful Everyday. If you buy that on Steam and you don't know about patches, you get like, what, just a couple hours? And you're like, what the heck is this? Or, of course, Steam just says, no, you're blocked on site between what you said with Kara no Shoujo. They banned the first Meteor World actor for whatever reason, but they've got the second one allowed. And so, if it wasn't such a minefield to even get visual novels on Steam at all, they would be pretty darn perfect. But unfortunately, that's a huge problem where just the content of this product itself is entirely, up in the air. And so, for those fans out there who are looking for 18 plus versions, or at least just, the full content versions, thankfully we do have other storefronts that exist that are able to provide all sorts of features in their own right, especially the ones tailored towards visual novels,
Yeah, and my biggest example, the one I use pretty much all the time, is Just. They at some point won me over, and I even wonder to myself, what was the one title that brought me completely to Just? And it might actually be the fact how tightly connected they were to very successful Kickstarters of Venus Blood. I think that got me on board. I think so. And since then, the store only improved. And I said, you know what? This is my platform of choice. And then as a very popular meme says, my friendship ended with you. Just is my new friend, and then I left Manga Gamer behind, and I moved to Just since then.
Yeah, Just has so
Because
much going for it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, they're certainly the publisher that's clearly putting the most effort into improving their stores. Because, like for example, Manga Gamer, it's cool that they publish stuff, but their UI has basically been exactly the same for the last 20 years. Meanwhile, Jast, I don't even remember what their old UI was before, but like they've like overhauled it a lot to be this modernized blue with the ability to use PayPal, with with like a storefront, like a front page that kind of mirrors Steam in terms of recommendations, like a more robust search system. They even have like options to have like a download manager of all things, like, and I will have to commend them for not only their improvements to their stores, but also like they want to have they clearly, like, according to social media, like they want to like they're dedicated to being like the best store. Like they clearly have aspires to be better than Steam, or like at the very least the visual novel store, including when they add stuff like regional pricing, which is like originally one of the reasons I was pro Steam, because Jast clearly was like the when Jast adding regional pricing is like one of the things that hopefully wins some people's ear, and hopefully it did, because that is a nice feature, because someone who knows some online fans who are from different countries.
Mm-hmm. They have, I believe they have a 24-hour refund window for any purchases, and then a 30-day refund period for if you had any technical issues with getting the VNs to work or whatnot. They also have a points system where they give you some money back for future purchases for, anything you buy from the Jest. Mm-hmm. So they clearly do a lot.
Box.
Yeah, like you mentioned, the UI is also pretty sleek. It's feels very modern, and with all of the extra stuff stripped out, so it just gives you the basics and exactly what you need, and with no fluff getting in your way. Mm-hmm. Like you said, very modern.
Although one thing that Ange brought up is actually hilarious, because it made me laugh when I've listened to their panel on Anime Expo. They also mentioned when they brought up the download manager for the first time, it was such a buggy piece of shit mess. I just couldn't make it to work. It doesn't help that I'm behind 2 levels of VPN. So I'm like, I was this close of being forced to make a very angry email to them. But thankfully, they reacted really fast, and they added a functionality to completely disable the download manager altogether. And I know it's a useful feature for those with slower internet, specifically because VNs tend to be on the bigger end when it comes to downloads, which is fair enough. They wanted to combat that. But for me specifically, oh my god, it broke everything. And I was so pissed that moment when they introduced it.
Yeah, thankfully you have the ability to turn it off and on. Like I was telling someone about who was using Jast recently. Like they actually had an issue with a download manager where like the download manager starts, but then says, you don't have enough room to download this 3 gig visual. And I'm like,
exactly.
What?
Yep.
But they're like, okay, well, at least you can just turn it off and just download it like the old-fashioned way, just through your internet. So I guess that at least they give options now.
Yeah, exactly. Although I have to say one more thing on Steam that you said is a very good thing with its discoverability feature, and how they have advanced feature enabling you to filter. I don't think Just has as robust filtering. I think they have very competent one, but I think with Steam it's not necessarily a good thing. That it's necessity, because for Steam having variety of games, you have to have the ability to filter for VNs. In contrast, if I go to Just, I'm going for a specialized store, I don't need to filter by VNs on a VN store.
Yeah.
But then you brought up another funny point, because you mentioned, oh my god, I think it was Joren, that is completely a mess with the navigation and filtering, what you want to find there.
Yeah, Joren, man, when when it was Shiravune's only store besides Steam, that was rough. Cause even though I supported them, because before I like moved to Steam mostly, like Joran was basically the only way I could support Shiravune. And while I like some features like the ability to potentially save money with their gold coin system, unfortunately, like you alluded to, their navigation is not great. Like, first of all, they have two different sites. One where they focus on these gachas, so you have to find the adult version where they focus on Arrowgate. But even if you go on the Arrowgate site, you have to like know where you're going to like find the visual novel. Like for me, I just go like, okay, I'll just wait for them to tweet out the new game, or I'll go to VNDB that links to the store page, so I don't have to like scroll Control F, etc. And then on top of that, you have to do this DRM BS where you only have 3 activation codes on 3 different devices, and if you run out, then you're SOL. And that's actually happened to me before, so I had to like find this roundabout way to unrevoke my get my codes back, which is not fun. I don't know why they added that.
God, I mean, you basically summed up my Joran experience, in which I was so confused on the store. I said, you know what? Fuck it. Let's me Google the name of the title, add Joran in the Google, and Google will give me better result than their own site.
Yeah, because they split their site into like there's the PC options, and then you look for the mobile game stuff, and then there's the 18 plus distinctions. It's very easy to find yourself in the wrong corner because you were looking for one sort of thing, but it's actually categorized somewhere else. It's not pretty. And yeah, unfortunately, just Googling it and adding Joran is probably the easiest way to access it.
Yeah, and that's a bad sign if you need to go outside your own site to find things on your site. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's the issue with needing to buy the gold coins instead of just purchasing items outright. So then you only have so many different ways to purchase the gold coins, and then you got to convert them. And it may, even though there are cheaper options, there also may be the fact where you have gold coins left over. So in a sense, it was kind of more expensive, but now you have just like this on-site currency, and it makes things very complicated.
True, especially in contrast to what Ange made both point in this video, in this episode, and his original video. Steam allows regional pricings. I don't remember if just do have it, but I know it is very seamless in Steam. It is not the biggest concern of mine. I'm using a credit card that is intercontinental. But having an ability to pay in Polish funny money on Steam is actually really nice. Right?
Polish funny money?
Yeah, and what do they? Polish złoty. Okay, here you have it.
Okay. Speaking of which, when you think about Manga Gamer, God, like Ange mentioned, their site is all the way back, like it looks decades old, and they do not accept PayPal. The only way to buy stuff from Manga Gamer is by entering your credit card information into the site. And I'm certain that today there are still newbies who are asking about this sketchy site they found called Manga Gamer, asking if it's a scam. That was legitimately a thing. There are plenty of people who come up asking, is this site legit? I want to buy this VN, but it's only available here. And it's like, yes, that's just how Manga Gamer is. You trust us on this.
Okay, you know the worst thing about Manga Gamer, besides the fact they haven't upgraded, they still do. They're one of the few publishers to do these yearly surveys where they ask like, okay, hey, what visual novels would you like to see by us? And like they ask for like analytics, like, well, how old are you? Where do you live? But on the last poll they did, they had a really, really insulting question. Like they literally had a question that says, okay, which of these features would you like to see on the Manga Gamer store? Regional pricing, B, upgraded UI, C, the ability to use PayPal, like literally what everyone's been begging for years. But they asked in a freaking what you'll call a survey question, like as if it was like a rhetorical. Was it supposed to be a rhetorical question? It was. I'm like, I can't believe how far behind the times they are.
Was
but
it multiple
whatever.
choice and like you could only pick one?
I don't even remember. Just
Oh,
the fact
man.
that the question was on there blew my mind. Like I didn't. I'm like I can't. I don't know.
Exactly. Like why do you even need to poll for this in the first place? You obviously know what the concerns are. You're already listing them out in a survey. What are you trying to get people's opinions on about them?
Yeah, and it's frustrating because there are like one of you guys said, there are still exclusives to Mongamer. Like basically the majority of I guess the most a few Rants games, because some of them got ported to GOG and JAS now, but there's still stuff like lots of their older Overdrive titles like Kira Kira, Deer Drops, and probably some other titles like the 18 plus version of Princess Evangel, for example, like just little things like that are only on Mongamer, which is frustrating.
That's true. Yeah, I completely forgot for some reason of the original Princess Evangel. The 18 plus version is only on Manga Game, which is super bizarre because their fan disc 18 plus is available somewhere else as well, but not the original. Why? What happened?
Yeah, the only thing I
Also,
can think of is it was like probably in the era when 18 plus patches weren't common. So they're just like,
Yeah,
well,
maybe
we either
that,
just make two versions, and well, if you don't, you just got to go to our store if you want the sex. I don't know.
super bizarre. Yeah, that's true. And you reminded me also about the Overdrive titles because I really love them. And yeah, Manga Gamer is the only place I know of. But then again, I'll raise your stake, okay, Ange? Because you said Manga Gamer's biggest negative is how they are unchanged from the Storefront perspective. But I suffered the opposite problem. For some time, 5 years ago, maybe a bit more, I've been buying quite a lot from Denpasoft. And there was a period of time when they constantly changed its site and it kept bugging out all the time. I have such a massive amount of support ticket opened on that freaking store. I lost one purchase, I got something else, I got double purchase. Like that was a buggy mess for a long time. So I'm just said, you know what? At least Manga Gamer works and I no longer buy on Denpasoft. I'll be honest, nope. You can't make me.
Oh dear, messing with people's purchase info, that's real bad. I mean, it's one.
It's as it purchase info, as it purchase orders not being fulfilled or waiting forever.
Oh my god.
Yeah, unfortunately, I do remember that era, and but back when I was still only non-Steam stores, I definitely agreed. Denpasoft was, in a way, the opposite problem. And for those who don't know, Denpasoft is Sekai Projects' 18 plus store, and they did change their store, their store UI and functionality probably more often than they should have. Like I'm all for getting with the UI times, but they really should have tested their features before changing. But and funnily enough, I have seen people who like you said, probably even still today, they prefer Manga Gamer's because it's, for better or for worse, been the most consistently working site. Because even JAS, like you said, has some issues with its download manager at one point. But as far as I'm aware, besides the fact that you can only use credit card, Manga Gamer always worked. And who knows, there are some people who I have seen people unironically say they prefer the old UI because that's just, I don't know, it maybe presents a good era. Maybe these new UIs are too, I don't know, too bright or too simple. I don't know. But yeah, there's definitely arguments to be made in favor of Manga Gamer. No, I don't want to get. I definitely want to acknowledge that.
Oh my. Well, one last shout out is that there's also itch.io. They focus mostly on indie titles, and so you get a lot of video games there, but you get a whole bunch of indie VN developers as well. And, they have a bunch of features and they're cool. I don't think they're going to ever breach into Steam territory, considering that they have a pretty, I guess you could say, a specific focus of targeting the indie releases. But you still see a lot of visual novels there, and it's another option out there. And honestly, I think having options with their own strengths and weaknesses is one of the best systems we can ask for with all these different storefronts.
True, and I gotta say, whenever I had an experience with itch.io, I never complained. Honestly, it just so happens it's probably the store with the least titles I'm interested in. But whenever I was interested in, I felt like it runs really smoothly and it's good customer experience.
I have sadly not bought from Itch yet, which sucks because I'm that's one of the store that's probably the biggest store I have not tried at all because they do have some quirky, interesting looking Western made visual novels, but yeah, just I just haven't gotten to it yet. Maybe when I find that one that makes you want to just makes you jump in, I want to try it and see what my experience is because it does look good.
So many good VNs out there, so little time.
True.
But
What we need is the storefront to buy time, not VNs. Okay.
oh god, if only.
If only.
But yeah, thank you everyone for listening, and that'll be where we can wrap up our episode for today. As always, thank you so much for dropping by, Ange. It's always a pleasure to have you on as guest for our episodes.
It's always great to be here. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you again, and for being here. And to all our listeners, thanks again, and venture out.
Venture out.